How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, written and directed by Dean DeBlois, is the third installment in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise and picks up roughly a year after the events of How to Train Your Dragon 2. Berk is living in harmony with the dragons, but with any sort of utopia comes outside threats to seek to destroy it. A dragon hunter named Grimmel that seeks to hunt and destroy all the Night Furies gets word that Toothless is living in Berk, and he focuses his attention on destroying everything Hiccup loves in an effort to hunt one of the last living Night Furies. As Hiccup tries to solve a number of problems at once, he hopes to preserve the Berk way of life and the safety of the dragons. Alright, so How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World was easily one of my most anticipated films of 2019. I love the first two films. I think they're beautiful movies and they're showcases of how emotionally captivating an animated film can be when all the pieces fit together correctly. I think I've told you guys before also that the second one is my favorite animated film ever, of all time. I think it's just an amazing film from start to finish, and it's one of my favorite movies, period, animated or otherwise. So as you can probably tell, I set the bar pretty high for this one heading into the theater. I was expecting greatness because of how amazing the first two were, which I feel is a fair expectation. I can't say I was majorly disappointed with this third installment, but it didn't quite live up to its predecessors in any way, really. I think this is still a very, very good movie, but it's certainly the weakest installment in almost every way. I think that part of the letdown for me was that it was definitely emotional, but not nearly as emotional as I expected or wanted it to be. I expected it to offer a lot of highs and lows and ultimately a climactic and fitting ending that felt as emotional as it did adventurous. I think you get that to an extent, to a satisfying level, but not to a level where you'll be praising this movie as everything you wanted and then some. And a lot of this is difficult to discuss without getting into spoilers because there really are a million different things that I could say that would spoil a lot of various aspects of this movie for you, so I'm trying to keep it as general as I can here. Still, I felt that aspects of this story feel familiar, yet less emotional and even less adventurous as the previous installments. I still think it provides several really great moments, but I think that the execution of moments that are supposed to mean something, the moments that are supposed to provide payoff for our investment in these characters over two films, aren't quite as well done as most are probably going to be hoping for. But I don't want to come across as too overly critical here because I do think that there is a lot to really like. Firstly, I think that they take Hiccup and Toothless to satisfying places as characters. This is just as much Toothless's movie as it is Hiccup's. They make a strong effort to separate the two for long periods of time, really, so that they're able to grow and exist separate from one another. The ultimate bromance between the two it's still present, it's still there, but this movie really does want to separate the two and focus on what their strengths are as individual characters separate from one another. I didn't fall in love with this strategy as much as I would have liked, but I did feel that it does lead to some satisfying revelations about what the two, what they believe in and their own personal growth as characters, and it's cool to see that kind of thing. And a big part of what makes, these two so cool is the connection they have and the admiration they have for one another. You do feel that connection and you feel how important their friendship is to each of them, just like in the first two, which is always one of the best parts of this franchise. But I did find a lot of value in getting a more thorough understanding of the two, like I mentioned. But I think this story is also smaller scale than most are going to expect. Instead of, going bigger in the third and maybe final installment, this film elects to go smaller. I think a lot of people are going to, probably go into How to Train Your Dragon 3 and expect a big, grand finale. I did, and I don't think that's what you get here. This time, there's more of an emphasis placed on character development than there is adventure. And I'm sure there's a lot of examples you could probably point to of films electing to do this. But my go-to is typically Guardians of the Galaxy 2. The film Guardians 2 is not nearly the journey that the first one was, but it does a really great job developing the characters in a satisfying way and fleshing them out further. And that's what Hidden World does as well. So again, I think how much you'll love this film is greatly going to depend on how much excitement and adventure you're looking for and how grand you expect this finale to be. This is a smaller scale story, as I mentioned, which I still really enjoyed, but I think it just feels a little anticlimactic when you compare it to the previous two movies. That said, the animation is awesome. I mean, the How to Train Your Dragon franchise has always delivered incredible animation that continually pushes the boundaries of what's possible with this type of movie. I think the animation in this one is on par with the second film, probably a little bit worse, but in the same ballpark for sure. The lighting looks insanely good, the colors are vivid, and it's just an overall great looking film as you'd probably expect. Another aspect that deserves recognition or, mention at the very least is the comedy. I think this is probably the funniest How to Train Your Dragon film, and that's nothing to scoff at. I mean, there is a slight tendency to overdo things just a little bit, but not enough to count it as a major con or anything. I don't think a couple spots of excessive humor are going to, majorly alter your experience, in other words, in one way or another. The comedy is lighthearted as always, it's silly and it's fun, which is what most people are looking for out of this type of movie that I guess first and foremost is a kid's film. But overall, I didn't love The Lost World as much as I hoped I would, but I still really enjoyed it. I think it's a very good film. I think it's slightly flawed, albeit, still a satisfying end to the trilogy. As for the pros cons, I think How to Train Your Dragon provides quality character development for our two leads, some awesomely vibrant animation, quality comedy that adds fun and lightheartedness to the experience, and a strong ending that provides a mostly satisfying conclusion. As for the cons, I think that the adventurousness is occasionally lacking, and the film isn't as emotional as it needs to be to provide, I'll use the word supreme payoff for investment in a nearly decade-long franchise. I'm still going to give How to Train Your Dragon The Hidden World a 9 out of 10 and recommend you check it out in theaters. I do highly recommend you watch the first two before seeing this one though. It builds off a lot of previously established content considering it's the final film in a trilogy and all. So did you guys see How to Train Your Dragon The Hidden World? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know your favorite installment in the trilogy. For me, it's 2 as I mentioned because I felt that it struck the perfect balance between adventure, excitement, and emotion. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts though. Either way, this is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.